Let us be a faith that gathers, reaching out for one another through the hate and turmoil that others stir up, through the cages of ignorance and arrogance, and through the fear and confusion seen on our streets. Let us be a faith that sees a vision of a better world, more compassionate, more just, more holy, and with more love. There is a faith that binds up the broken, tends battle wounds with the balm of peace, sings longer and louder than the trumpets of war. Let us be that faith too. Let us be the ones who do not drift passively through this world, but light it up with our love and strive for liberation, who hold up the mirror of worth and dignity, who are the sanctuary that others seek. But first, let us be a faith that worships together, here this morning in this sacred space at this very moment. Let us be a people of faith. Well, these opening words by Heidi Cotton welcome all those who have gathered this morning for our Sunday service. Welcome to those of you who are here in person at Essex Church. Welcome to everyone who's joining us via Zoom, or indeed anyone joining us via YouTube or the podcast later on. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Jane Blackall and I'm minister with Kensington Unitarians. The focus of this morning's service is worth, dignity and equality. One of the central principles of our Unitarian movement is that we recognise and affirm the worth and dignity of all people. And it seems particularly important to return to that principle and lift it up in the light of recent events, the racist and Islamophobic violence and disorder on our streets. So we're going to take this hour to reflect on our deep commitment to truly knowing the worth, dignity and equality of all. And our very own Patricia Brewerton will be offering her reflections on the subject later on in the service. But before we go any further, let us light our chalice flame as we do each time we gather. It's time for us to stop and centre ourselves, take a breath or two, settle ourselves down and truly arrive. It's a simple ritual that connects us with Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists the world over, and it reminds us of the proudly progressive religious tradition of which this gathering is part. In hard times and good, let us look first to the response of love. In the midst of challenge, may our chalice flame bear witness to the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. In the midst of uncertainty, may our chalice be a beacon of encouragement that our values may guide our choices. In hard times and good, let us look first to the response of love. Time to sing now. Our first hymn today is in your purple hymn books. It's number 194, We Light the Flame. For those joining via Zoom, the words, as always, will be up on your screen. Feel free to stand or sit as you prefer, and let's sing up as best we can. Hymn 194, We Light the Flame.
Oh
So let's take all of those joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, into an extended time of prayer now. This is based on some words by Carter Smith. You might want to adjust your position to be more comfortable, might want to put down anything you don't need to be holding. If there's a posture that helps you to feel more prayerful, whatever helps you to get into the right state of body and mind for us to be fully present in this sacred time and space with ourselves, with each other, and with that which lies within us and beyond us. Spirit of life, God of all love, in whom we live and move and have our being, we turn our full attention to you, the light within and without, as we tune into the depths of this life and the greater wisdom to which and through which we are all intimately connected. Be with us now as we allow ourselves to drop into the silence and the stillness at the very centre of our being. This morning, let us honour our interconnectedness within our own circles, within this community, and radiating ever further out into all those with whom we share this city, this country, this continent, this world, and further still to all those who have gone before us and all who are yet to be. When we witness suffering and turmoil in ourselves, in our loved ones, our community and the world around us, may we know compassion. When we're at a loss for words, when we're unsure of the way ahead, may we be guided by our compassion to be witnesses still, to know and to feel that our human family is broken in so many ways, and it's further wounded with every life lost, every estrangement and fracture of relationship, and with each time someone's inherent worth and dignity is denied. When we find ourselves exhausted and defeated, unsure of where to go, may we keep witnessing, turning ever forward towards your still small voice, towards love. And remind us too that the experience of suffering and struggle does not and need not close us off from the possibility of joy. May we know that our interconnectedness is a miracle, and may it be a refuge for us, felt in the voice of a friend, the momentary kindness of a stranger, the touch of a loved one, and the comforting memories of days spent in good company. May we remain grateful for the goodness we've witnessed and enacted in the world. And may the warmth of our lives together hold us in love, even as we move into an uncertain future. Help us to truly know your presence, that it may remind us of what is sacred in each and every precious moment. And may you teach us that sacred presence too, that we might know ourselves here and now, that we may be present for each other and for this one precious life that we share. And in a few moments of shared stillness, may we speak inwardly some of the deepest prayers of our hearts, the joys and sorrows we came in carrying in our own lives and the life of the wider world. Let us each lift up what is on our heart this day and silently ask for what we most need. Spirit of life, God of all love. As this time of prayer draws to a close, we offer up our joys and concerns, our hopes and our fears, our beauty and our brokenness. And we call on you for insight, healing and renewal. As we look forward now to the coming week, help us to live well each day and be our best selves, using our unique gifts in the service of love, justice and peace. Amen. Time to sing again now. Our next hymn is on your hymn sheet. It's called Who Is My Neighbour? This is a new one for us. I sent a link out in Friday's email and I put it on the WhatsApp group so you could listen ahead of time and do your homework. And we've got Benjie to help us as well. Blanca's going to play it through in full before we start to sing. Let's give it our best shot. The words of this hymn are so lovely, something I think we can really get behind, and I hope it will become a regular. Who is my neighbour?
Good morning. Equality in a Sea of Inequality by Peggy Clark. And this piece was written by Unitarian Universalist Peggy Clark, and thus it refers to her own particular context and the history of the United States. However, there are some universal lessons we can take from it about the complicated and decidedly imperfect history of human beings pursuing greater equality wherever in the world they are. So Peggy Clark writes, "When the United States of America was founded, the aspiration was high. The men who imagined it dreamed big, casting a vision of a world where all men were created equal, where rights were endowed by our Creator, transcending culture and the expectations of the day, and where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness would be allowed and enjoyed without infringement. It was a radical and new vision, born from Enlightenment optimism, inspired by scientific discovery. It was an intoxicating vision, as bold as the Protestant Reformation that had swept all of Europe. And they had the hubris to believe they could make it happen. They staked their claim in the Declaration of Independence and institutionalized it in the Constitution. They elected their first president, and when he stepped down, relinquishing power to return to the role of citizen, those founders believed they lived to see their vision realized. A new president ran for office, and the Republic was up and running. It was done. A new world order. Those men weren't distracted by the genocide they inspired, or the enslavement of other people they required for this nation to be born. They declared equality while swimming in a sea of inequality. When they declared all men were created equal, they meant white Protestant men. They didn't mean women. They weren't including black people who'd been enslaved, or those who were free. They didn't include Catholics, Jews, or people who didn't own land. They were so proud of their inclusivity, so inspired by their own cutting-edge philosophy, that they had no idea how narrow it was, how constrictive, how small a vision. The men who wrote those words were calling into being a more perfect union. They were establishing justice, ensuring domestic tranquility, securing the blessings of liberty. They believed that they and the men of their generation would will this new nation into being. They would establish the structures required for such a grand vision. They would test it, and then it would be done. They didn't realize that it would require many more people, many different voices. They didn't know how many generations would have to be part of the creation of that dream, how long it would take before the nation they imagined would be made manifest. The soul of America has yet to be born.
Thanks, John. So we're going to move into a time of meditation now. To take us into our shared silence, I'm going to share a few strong words on human worth and dignity from Desmond Tutu. A few fragments from different sources strung together, something for you to ponder inwardly. Then we'll have 3 minutes of silence, which will end with the sound of a bell, and then we'll have some more lovely music for our continued reflection. So again, let's do what we need to do to get comfortable. You might want to make sure your feet are flat on the floor if that helps to ground yourself. As I always say, the words are just an offering. Feel free to use this time to meditate in your own way. Desmond Tutu said, "Each one of us is imbued with profound dignity and worth. To treat people as if they were less than this, to oppress them or trample their dignity underfoot, is not just evil, as it surely must be. It is not just painful, as it frequently must be for the victims of injustice and oppression. It is positively blasphemous, for it is tantamount to spitting in the face of God. All beings, all belongs to God, and all are of equal worth in God's sight. No political ideology could better that for radicalness. That is what fired our own struggle against apartheid. This incredible sense of the infinite worth of each person, created in the image of God, being God's viceroy, God's representative, God's stand-in, being a God carrier, a sanctuary, a temple of the Holy Spirit, inviolate, possessing a dignity that was intrinsic. Human beings are at the centre of the divine enterprise as creatures of infinite worth and dignity, independent of our work, our ability, or our success. We are each created by God, like God, for God. This reading is from Bill Fullilove, a Presbyterian theologian, and it's very much rooted in his own particular Christian tradition. But I think it also speaks to something more generally applicable about the roots of equality, and it chimes with those words from Desmond Tutu that we heard earlier on. So he writes, "One of the lessons I learned early on about being outdoors in the cold, especially hiking, is this. You need to have a base layer. When it's super, super cold out and you're hiking, you need layers to keep you warm, but those layers only properly keep you warm if the bottom layer, the one closest to your skin, is just right. Underneath them all, next to your skin, you need a layer that wicks moisture out and away from you, and with that correct base, the others will keep you warm." How does that relate to faith? Here's how. Our society rightly values many, many things: equality, generosity, kindness and virtue, to name only a precious few. And it rightly opposes many, many things: racism, sexism, human trafficking, many more. And that's right and good. Our world should hate racism and sexism. It should hate exploitation. Those are those nice warm layers that make things good and right. But why should it? Our world has a great many instincts, and we should add many not so great instincts. When our current society is at its best, it deeply values human dignity. But far too often these values and layers are missing the why, the base layer. And as a result, instead of leading to a greater world, a good world, they leave things instead a bit cold. Our society and our world, for all its good intentions, often falls into disaster because it doesn't have the right foundations for its good instincts about humanity. One of the best things we as people of faith can do for our world is give the why to the things society does value. Christianity has a base layer that makes the rest of those layers work, a consistent reason for human dignity. The Christian contention is that dignity comes because we are created in the image of God. Because human beings are made in God's image, we have an inherent dignity, one that can be marred and defaced, but never lost. This is a vision for a world we want to live in. This is a true and better story. This is the base layer that makes equality and goodness and generosity and all the rest work. An understanding of humanity is made in the image of God and therefore with inherent dignity. This is why it's worth fighting for public health and education, why it's worth fostering an adoption, why it's worth building businesses that provide jobs. This is why it's worth caring for those whose bodies are failing and who have seen their usefulness to society fade away. Because all those things are in line with the dignity that all people have by being made in the image of God. Words by Bill Fullilove.
Okay, right sound, good. About 10 years ago, I was secretary of a church in Bloomsbury. The church building is architecturally very interesting. There's a beautiful stained glass window, and it attracts a lot of attention, and many photos are taken. The 1960s building had recently been refurbished to accommodate a room hire business, a busy cafe, and a gallery where little-known artists could display their work. Unfortunately, the congregation was very small and elderly and lacked a minister. However, this meant, as secretary, I could make decisions without reference to anyone else. So when I was asked by the Catholic charity Positive Faith if they could use the building for an exhibition, I could just say yes. What they wanted to exhibit were some quilts. Now, these were not the kind of quilt you put on a bed, and they were much too heavy to hang on the wall in the gallery. In fact, 2 of them, laid side by side, filled the worship space of the church, leaving just enough room for visitors to walk around and ponder on what they saw. The charity Positive Faith works with people affected by AIDS and HIV, and these quilts had been made by people who had lost loved ones in the AIDS epidemic during the 1980s. Each quilt represented the lives of several of the people who had died. It had been a communal project designed to help people heal as they gathered together to create these works of art and memory. The quilt I remember most vividly was of a young, had a section devoted to the memory of a young hairdresser and included combs, scissors, and hair rollers. The quilts lay on the floor for a week, and people using the building for meetings or enjoying a coffee or lunch in the cafe would take time to look at them. Come Saturday, however, the exhibition had to be removed to make the space ready for the Sunday service. Around 5 p.m., some people arrived to take up the quilts and asked me if I would agree to take part in a short video in front of the quilts before they were removed. The questions were about the church's attitude towards people suffering from HIV/AIDS. I didn't really know the official view of the United Reformed Church, so I decided to just answer for myself. Some of these questions seemed a bit harsh. One was whether HIV/AIDS was a punishment from God. Now, any God I could possibly believe in would have to be a loving, not a punishing God. The final question was about how we should treat people affected with HIV/AIDS. Should we treat them as equals? This video formed part of a series aimed at providing support for the people seeking help from Positive Faith. And when I attended the launch of the project, the filmmaker reminded me of my answer to his last question. Apparently, I had answered that we should know them as equals. I'd forgotten this, but have to admit I was quite pleased with my answer and the fact that he had remembered and approved of it. I was so pleased with myself, in fact, that I used the phrase any time I could until someone challenged me. Or did I mean? I know why I would have given that answer. I think asking whether we should treat someone as equal sort of implies that they're not really our equal. Society appears to consider equality to be desirable, whilst accepting that we are obviously not equal in terms of wealth or power. In fact, in some ways, it seems that whatever we claim to aspire to, we're not really comfortable with the idea of equality at all. We're always finding ways of undermining it, ways of sorting the winners from the losers, whether it's in sport or art, or even in growing marrows. We do like to have a winner. On Jane's recommendation, I've been reading some sermons by Art Lester, who I gather was once minister of Kensington Unitarians. He points out that winning always depends on someone else losing, and no one wants to be a loser. I hardly ever watch programs like Bake Off, for instance, because I can't bear that bit at the end where we must wait to find out who is going home this week. Aside from competitions about who is best at baking, singing, painting, or whatever, there are other subtle ways in which to sort people into their place in our unequal society. I'll give you an example. We were staying in Marseille and were invited via a mutual acquaintance to dinner with an English couple who lived there. We hadn't really wanted the invitation and had accepted it rather reluctantly. Not surprisingly, conversation was a little strained. At some point, the husband asked where our grandson went to school. Now, I am sure he had never heard of William Patton's School in Stoke Newington, but that wasn't the point of the question. He wanted to find out what social class we belonged to, and my grandson's school gave the game away. The sad thing about the questions I was being asked during the filming of the video for Positive Faith is that they reflected how the people the charity supported saw themselves. They'd been made to feel so ashamed of the infection which their bodies carried that they believed they were being punished by God. They expected to be treated differently from other members of their church, and so the question, should they be treated as equals? And my response, that they should be known as equals. But what does it mean to be known? That man in Marseille was treating me as an equal, but I don't think he wanted to know me as one. Art Lester writes about the sheer pleasure of being known, which he believes is the nearest desire to the human heart. So to know someone as equal like this would have nothing to do with wealth, power, or social class. It would mean recognizing each other's inherent worth. I'm sure you've all heard that African word, Ubuntu, which has been used by Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, but also, perhaps surprisingly, by Bill Clinton. At its simplest, it means, I am because you are. It expresses the concept of common humanity, of oneness, or as an article I read recently suggested, you and me, we're the same really, but we're not mirror images of each other. Some of us do win more often than we lose. Perhaps where our common humanity shows most is in our frailty. And compassion is one of the core values of Ubuntu, but so are respect and dignity. We don't want to be treated as equal, but known as equal. I was deeply moved recently by something Humza Yousaf, former First Minister of Scotland, said following the recent riots. He said he had been born, raised and educated in Scotland and always known himself to be a Scot. But these riots had shown that he may have been treated as Scottish enough to be their First Minister, but people apparently didn't know him as Scottish. He himself had begun to doubt his place in that society. We can only really get to know people in small communities, in relationships of trust. But I wonder, as we practice knowing each other as equals here in Essex Church, we can somehow have an influence in the world outside our doors. Remember that saying, you smile, another smiles, and soon there's miles and miles of smiles because you smiled. Little by little, the world can be changed.
Thanks, Patricia. Time for one last hymn now then. It's in your purple books, number 191, based on the very famous words of Martin Luther King Jr., We Have a Dream. Hymn number 191.
This takes the will
Just a few announcements now then. Thanks again to Patricia for choosing today's theme and for a lovely reflection. Thanks to John for reading. Thanks to Blanca for stepping in at short notice to play for us today, and to Abby and Benjie for lovely music. Thanks to Janine for tech hosting and Sherry for hosting at home. If you're joining on Zoom, please do think about hanging around for a chat with Sherry. And if you're a regular, I wonder if you might be able to help with our co-hosting. Let Sherry or me or Charlotte know. We could always do with more help on that front. For those who are here in person, please do stay for tea and cake. We've got apple and sultana cake served in the room next door. Once you've had your cuppa and your cake, why not come back in here for a sing with Margaret, who's leading Finding Your Voice singing classes after the service today from 12:30. That's free and fun, and she is guaranteed to help everybody make a better sound. I need to draw it to your attention that there will be no Sunday service next week. This is largely because a number of people are away. All of our regular worship leaders are going to be at Hucklow Summer School. Ramona's off on holiday in Panama. And it's Carnival weekend, when last year we had a very small turnout, so nothing next week. We'll be back on the 1st of September when the service will be followed by Gaynor and Tatty's Many Voices, LGBTQIA and Friends singing group. That's always good fun too. We've got an online heart and soul contemplative spiritual gathering tonight at 7 when our theme is peace. And that's a really good way to get to know people on a deeper level and share our thoughts on the things that matter. You can also come in person on Wednesday when Brian will be offering a heart and soul here at the church. Let him know if you're planning to be there. The next meeting of the Better World Book Club is on Bank Holiday Monday. We'll be reading Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. This is the last freebie copy if anyone wants to take it away and read it in the next week or so. And I've just released the titles for the next 6 months, and there's a flyer down there if you want to take it away. In fact, I've refreshed a few of our flyers, so do come and have a little browse and take some away, share them with friends, post them in public places, help us to grow. What do I need to say? We've got a tea dance on the 8th of September, so if you would like a little dance, if you feel able to help with refreshments and welcoming people, do come along for that after the service on the 8th of September. And on the 15th, we have our gathering, the water service and a community lunch, which Juliet is going to coordinate. So let her know what food or drink you're able to bring along to the lunch. Community singing is going to be back on the 11th of September. Fingers crossed. Let me know if you plan to come to that and I'll keep you posted. All these things are printed on the back of your order of service. They come in the Friday email. If you've not already signed up for the mailing list, please do, and you'll get an update every week of what's going on. This church very much has a life beyond Sunday morning, so we encourage you to look out for each other, nurture supportive connections, and do what you can to build this community. So just time for our closing words and closing music now. As we go forth from this sacred space, may we celebrate the wonder of our shared lives. May we recognise our connections to all that is in and on earth. May we truly and deeply value the inherent worth of all in this astonishing interconnected web of existence. May we commit ourselves to a new and better way. And may we hold our commitments to each other gently but firmly as we meet the days to come. Go everyone, and blessed be. Amen.